Today, I want to talk about how to stop comparing yourself to other people and to focus on yourself and your own story. Because, like they say, comparison is the thief of joy. And whenever we compare ourselves to other people, it's actually really dangerous because it makes us weak. It makes us inauthentic. It stops us from discovering who we really are. And so this is a really big deal, but it's really hard today because of Instagram and YouTube and seeing other people's success all the time. When we compare ourselves to others, it stops us from even starting in our own path. I've tried so many things over the years to work on this, and it all clicked when I finally read this one book called The Gap and the Gain. I want to share with you this really simple framework from this book because it just changes our whole perspective on things, and it finally gave me a way to stop comparing myself to others and focus on my own journey. Because that's the thing, you can't just stop something, you have to replace it with something else. So if we want to stop comparing ourselves to other people, what we need to do is focus intensely on our own journey. Here is a 2-part framework to help you start doing that. So the premise of this book is that there's 2 different states of mind that we can be in, and one is the gap and the other is the gain. At any point in time, there's us, and then there's where we came from, and there's where we want to be. And we're always not where we want to be, right? We see these people on social media, we compare ourselves to where they are, or even the dreams that we come up in our own minds, we compare ourselves and we see this huge gap between where that ideal is and where we are now. So when we're comparing ourselves to this ideal version of life, that actually makes us feel like we're behind, that we're failing, that it's really far away. For a long time, I thought that I needed to lean into those feelings to push myself to go further. But actually, it doesn't have to be that way. That just builds insecurity and actually makes the job of getting there seem a lot harder. Instead of that, this book shares that there's another mindset that we can get into, which they call the gain. Instead of looking from where we are to where we want to be, it looks backwards at what we've accomplished. And that actually gives you self-propelling momentum because you start to see how much you've achieved, how much you've progressed, and that gives you more motivation and strength to keep going forward. I don't know about you, but I always thought that I had to push myself by looking at all the things that I lacked and that I would get lazy if I celebrated the things that I have. There's an Asian influence in that thinking. But in any case, the book gives you example after example of how it's actually the opposite. Looking backward and celebrating our success actually pushes us faster than ever because it gives us confidence, it boosts us. Most of all, it helps us to focus on our own journey, our own successes, rather than trying to reach some other person's ideal. What's an example of that? The most powerful example for me has been my fitness journey. When I started, I was absolutely in the gap all the time. I was comparing myself to other fitness people on Instagram and always just saying like, wow, I could never do that. Why don't I look like that? Feeling horrible about myself. And that didn't actually get me anywhere. That just made me feel really bad. Everything changed for me when I started tracking my workouts and just focusing on showing up 4 to 5 times a week and doing a little bit more than last time. Just focusing on myself, focusing on what I needed to do. And then I just remember after 12 weeks looking at the spreadsheet that I had been tracking on and being like, oh my God, that's me? And that just changed my whole relationship with working out and finally made me believe that I could do this. And it was pretty shocking that in that time when I had chosen to stop following anyone else and just focus on myself, I actually saw far greater results. So when I read this book, I thought back to that example and I was like, yes, that's exactly it. When I was focused on myself, I moved forward faster and actually got the results that I'd been wanting all that time. How can we get into the game? So the idea is rather than me looking forwards at this ideal goal, to be looking backwards at where we've come and to celebrate that regularly. So the authors in the book recommend this practice of 3 wins every evening, where you just think of your 3 wins each day to get you in that mindset of thinking of success, thinking of all the things you've done. And it's pretty crazy. It's such a different habit than going to bed at night, opening Instagram, scrolling, and you don't even realize, but that's putting yourself in the gap just being like, wow, look at that person, they have this. Look at that person, they have that. Oh, look, she's doing so much more. We don't even realize the effect that has on us. So instead of that, put down the phone and write or tell yourself the things that you're proud of yourself for achieving that day. Make that a habit, because that's something we don't do nearly enough. We very rarely celebrate ourselves. There's this feeling that it's arrogant or selfish to celebrate ourselves, but that's totally wrong. That's actually why we're all in this mess in the first place. So you need to embrace celebrating yourself, and that starts with daily habits. For me personally, I talk about this a lot, but I have this morning journaling practice where I write something I'm grateful for, something I'm proud of myself for, and something I want. I've been doing that now for, 5 years. It's so small, but has done so much for my mindset to build my self-confidence and build my self-esteem in who I am and what I've achieved. And so that's like the tiniest minimal thing that anyone can do. You can do tonight, today, right away. Another thing they talk about in the book is that a lot of people, when they set goals, they focus on outputs. Like, I want to lose 10 pounds, have 100,000 followers, make $1 million. The problem with that is that those things are largely out of our control, right? You feel like you've done all the right things, but the scale doesn't budge. And so instead of that, the suggestion is to focus on inputs, things that are within your control. Rather than, I want to lose 10 pounds, focus on, I want to show up to the gym 3 times a week. That is within your control, right? You can track that, you can focus on that, you can celebrate having done it. That's the magic. When you focus on what is actually within your control, you can achieve far greater things. Imagine if you're swimming and you're watching this person ahead of you. You'll be slow and you'll be not focused, but when you just focus on your own journey, you put your head down and just think, breathe, work on each stroke, keep improving, you'll get so much further, right? Instead of just always being looking around where everyone else is. I gave the example of my fitness journey. That is exactly what happened. I just focused on showing up each day and what I needed to do. Same with content, rather than focusing on how many followers you want to get, because you can't judge. The algorithm gods are in charge of that. All you can focus on is how much content you produce, how much you put out there. Just focus on that and let go of what comes out of it. Whenever I want to start a new goal, I don't think about the big goal or big numbers. I just think, what is the habit? What do I want to be doing every day, every week to get myself there? And I track it in a habit tracker or something else. I've been loving the results. These are really subtle changes. It's not something wild that you need to totally work on yourself and totally let go of other people. Just shift your attention. Rather than spending so much time looking at what other people are doing, focus on your own journey, what you're working on. Just focus all your attention on getting those inputs every day, and you will not only get to your goals, but you will far exceed them. You will stop comparing yourself to others, and the beauty of it is that you'll find your own unique path. It's not that by some strength of mind that you'll just stop comparing yourself to others. Replace it with intense focus on yourself and your journey, and you'll get there.